Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 87, Take Me Out. In this episode, I present Daniel with a metaphor, a sports metaphor, furthermore, my favorite kind of metaphor that I'm very good at. This extended metaphor is perhaps too extended. It's kind of long, and also admittedly weird. But it's a metaphor for the topic of this podcast, which is the technological and cultural state of dating in current year, which current year is 2025 at this time. And so it's a commentary on maybe some of the frustrations or limitations of dating in the world today. Through the lens of baseball. So I read through that metaphor, and Daniel and I talk about the different aspects of it, and then we talk a little bit about how culture and technology have combined, or maybe even entered into this death spiral together to make dating a pretty horrific place. So we comment on that a little bit. The title of the episode is a nice triple play, I'll call it. It's not a triple entendre because it's not sexual in nature, but take me out, take me out on a date, take me out to the ball game, or just take me out of this stupid dystopian dating hellscape. All three could apply. So it's maybe not the most joy-filled episode, but maybe it's humorous, and we try to at least bring a little bit of optimism in at the very end of the episode. So I hope you will enjoy it.
Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Hello, Daniel.
Greetings.
Greetings to you. Happy February.
I know. I try to say it quickly and move on.
I like to say it weirdly, February.
Call attention to it. I do the
Yeah.
opposite. I'm like, February, and then I like February, January, throw in some other months, whatever I can do to not call attention to the fact that I don't know how to pronounce it and I'm an adult. Because saying February just sounds wrong, but saying February, is February, I believe, is the right way, but it sounds awful in the ears. February sounds more right, but I know it's categorically, it is wrong, and so I'm just like February, and let's move on.
February. You just got to say February.
Wednesday. Wednesday. I mean, that's a weird one, too. Putting the N and the D, and when did...
It is weird.
I don't know.
It's your fault. I mean, you're the English guy. Fix it.
Yeah, I'm the English guy.
Clean up this stuff. Clean up these words.
I'll put that on my docket.
Please.
February.
Please
Wednesdays in February are terrible.
Well, lately we had, I don't know if you are aware, but we had the Super Bowl somewhat recently. I'm a big sports fan.
I'm aware.
And so I've kind of had sports on my mind.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but generate maybe a too extended metaphor. I have a sports metaphor for you today that I want to present.
I hope you knock it out of the park.
Oh, I plan to strike out, as they say.
Yeah, hit a strikeout.
Hit a strikeout. I'm gonna Hail Mary it.
Yeah.
So it's an extended metaphor. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start reading through the metaphor that I've put together, and you tell me you tell me when you figure out what it's about, and then we can start discussing the.
I'm very curious. It's like I'm a puzzle solve here. I'm going to really
the analogies.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
It's just an entry point into a topic that we can discuss. Okay. But I went a little overboard on the metaphor, and so it might be entertaining. So, all right. So imagine that you're playing baseball, and you're the batter. Mm-hmm. Now your bat, it's made of the right material. It's got a comfortable grip. There's no manufacturing defects. It's regulation length, maybe even a little above average. You walk out.
I think I know. No, okay, keep going.
You walk out to the plate, You're remembering the games of the past, those games of the past where the crowd was roaring, they were expecting you to hit the ball, they were desiring you to hit the ball. The lights were bright, they were shining down on you to make it easier to hit the ball. The coach back behind you yells, "Go get him, Tiger!" And you were a little embarrassed, but you were pumped. The tension was thick, like it mattered. The pitcher was skilled, but he'd throw fastballs right down the middle. There were times when the ball would be right in the strike zone and you would swing with all your might and whiff, but the umpire would shout, "You're out!" And you'd dejectedly walk back to the dugout, but the pitcher would give you a nod of respect as you did. And the coach would still say, "Maybe next time, Tiger." Other times, you'd make satisfying contact with the ball. It would crack, the ball would go flying, and you'd experience the excitement of what the game is all about. Anyway, back to the present. You drop out of your reverie as you approach the plate. Or, at least, where the plate should be. Where is the plate? There's nothing but dirt here. Oh, wait, it's just covered up by the dirt. You start to brush it off, but your cleats hardly do anything. It doesn't get the dirt off the plate at all. The umpire notices your struggle, and he offers to loan you his very special Plate Brusher 20 Pro. And you agree, but it turns out it's just a generic brush. He says you can pay him back later. The brush smears the dirt around more than anything, but at least you can kind of see the plate. "Play ball!" shouts the umpire, and you get into your stance, ready to swing. But there's no pitcher. You look around, confused. The white noise of the audience doesn't change its volume, doesn't change its pitch. Your teammates in the dugout are playing on their phones. You look back at your coach, and he again says, "Go get him, Tiger!" The dust of the pitcher's mound blows in a breeze. You start to back away, but the umpire growls at you, "I said, play ball!" After an awkward time, standing there with nothing happening, a shadowy figure appears and lazily walks across the field to the mound. He has his hat pulled low, and the lights seem to work in tandem with his movements to keep his face in shadow. All you can see is a smug hint of a smile through the shadow of his hat. Finally, you sigh in relief since the game is about to begin, just like you remembered. The pitcher begins his wind-up. You notice his glove is huge, and you can't see the ball at all, but you try your best to anticipate the pitch and let your instincts take control. The pitcher's arm flies forward, and you instinctively swing, but nothing happens. The pitcher didn't even have a ball in his hand. The audience doesn't react. The same white noise monotone buzzing in your ears. The umpire doesn't react. Your teammates don't react. Your coach says, "Go get him, Tiger!" The pitcher resets his stance, and confused, you do the same. A dozen more fake pitches occur with the same lack of reaction. But you know, when he really throws a ball, it's going to be a good one. Unexpectedly, the next pitch isn't a phantom. A white streak shoots forth towards you, and you get ready to swing. But something isn't right. It's much larger than you expect. It's a softball. You consider hitting it just because it's a change from the phantom pitches, but on a deeper level in your soul, you understand that hitting a softball would never satisfy you like hitting a baseball. So you don't swing. "Strike!" shouts the umpire. The next pitch comes, and instead of a softball, it's a tomato with black blotches and holes in it. Leaking ooze. Fruity ooze, because tomatoes are fruit. Disgusted, you don't swing. "Strike!" shouts the umpire. Another pitch, and it's a baseball. You swing, and your heart jumps as you make contact. It's not the solid crack of a home run, but at least you hit. The ball shoots off low, a hard grounder. You sprint towards first base, looking askance at the ball, which is headed right between first and second base. It should pass right through the gap in between. Wait a second. Instead of a first baseman and a second baseman, there are 15 people crowded on the field just in that position. You hustle to a stop in shock and realize there's a crowd of jostling players on the opposing team strewn across the infield. There's also a mid-left fielder, a mid-right fielder. Your grounder's lost in the crowd, but eventually the ball shoots towards first, and you hear the umpire shout, "You're out!" You take.
I have a theory, by the way, but I want you to keep going. I don't want to disrupt this.
All
But
right.
I'm not sure that I'm right or anything, because this
All
is
right,
very
all
odd, right? Like, it's not just me not immediately getting it doesn't make me stupid. I just like,
No,
this
no,
is
no, it doesn't. Yeah,
peculiar.
it is
But go
peculiar.
ahead.
Admittedly peculiar. We can go back through the things.
I mean, I've had a theory for the last probably minute, or since the baseballs were changing and the anyway. But keep going.
All right, all right. The game continues, and you take more bats throughout the game, but the game never seems to end. And much of the time, the pitcher just stands there, not throwing anything, and making you wait until your attention wavers. About half the pitches are softballs. About 20% of them are rotten fruit. Some are rotten tomatoes painted like baseballs. Some are baseballs that have been hollowed out and dipped in liquid nitrogen that shatter into a million pieces when hit. When the rare baseball is thrown, more often than not, it's not over the plate and not worth swinging at. Every now and then, the pitcher even throws a comically large basketball painted like a baseball. Laughing at the joke, you ask the umpire what the deal is, and if he can please ask the pitcher not to throw basketballs, and he viciously says that basketballs are baseballs, and if you say such a thing again, you'll be ejected from the game forever. After hundreds of at-bats, somehow the game is still going. To your delight, you get thrown a baseball right down the middle, and you connect perfectly. The ball shoots off towards the fence, and you know it's gone. You watch it soar, glad that you finally succeeded, but then suddenly the ball fades, as if behind a cloud, then disappears altogether in midair. The audience doesn't react. The players don't react. The umpire doesn't react. You stop in your tracks, confusedly and awkwardly return to the plate, where the umpire, as if nothing happened, shouts, "Play ball!" The game continues interminably. The pitcher gets gradually more and more shadowy. You see him nodding and making subtle hand motions to the umpire every now and then. The lights get incrementally dim, so it's harder to see the pitches. You think about quitting, but after all, you're a baseball player. It's what you do. One day, a good pitch will be thrown that you can hit that doesn't disappear and get caught by the swarm of opposing players. And that's it. You play forever.
What a nightmare. And then actually, it reads like a nightmare, like a literal nightmare. And to jump into interpretation, well, first of all, it was fun. It was fun sitting back and listening to. Sometimes I don't, I wish I could have experienced that a little differently and just listened to it and then put on my analytical cap. But because you kind of framed it as a puzzle to be solved, I'm like, I'm like listening almost too intently, and my brain does this dumb thing. It's the equivalent of like taking a phone call in a crowded car, and who do I listen to, and where do I what is important, what is not. It's overwhelming. But once I just sat back and kind of took it, that's a me thing.
Well,
So,
maybe I should have presented it differently, but
like, let me read you this piece, and then what do you think it means? Because that I would do that better, just sitting back, taking it in. So I mean, I'm thinking it's like what it's like to live in the digital age now, and the lack of clarity, and it's never ending, and you don't quit because you that's just who you are. It's part of your identity. But like navigating, it's like you think you have these rules, but they're ever changing, and you think the ball's coming at you, but it's not even a ball, and like all the rules are ever like, it really is nightmare. I was gonna say dreamlike, but nightmarish in that it resembles baseball. The games suggest that it's baseball, but it's just never baseball. And even when it is baseball, it's not baseball, or at least it's not satisfying in the way that it's like real baseball is. So
yes, yeah, you're very, very close. You're maybe one step too general, but yeah, you're pretty much there. The alternate title, not considering the metaphor, was the cultural and technological state of dating in current year.
of dating, okay.
So it's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
a dating specific metaphor, but obviously interwoven with technology to a large degree.
To a very large degree, and no, that makes sense. I want to unpack, because my brain, once I was on the metaphor of like this is what it's like to connect in digital spaces and try to establish intimacy. So I think that I wasn't wrong. I just, like you said, I was just more like not specific enough, because like yeah, because there's well, dating is more appropriately framed as a bit
As
of
a game, yeah.
as a game.
And striking out,
Unfortunately,
all of that stuff. First base.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Oh, yeah, the
sports
bases and
metaphors.
stuff.
Baseball
Specific metaphors in dating and
Right.
the sexual bases and the striking out and hitting home runs and yeah. Oh man.
pitching and receive and umpiring or whatever.
Pitching and receiving, catching and yep. What can I ask? What inspired this? Like where did the first? What was the seed line that then grew? I guess
I can't remember. I've had this one written down for a while, and we've been a little delayed on doing episodes. And I think you had an idea for an episode, and so it's been on the plate, so to speak,
in the lineup,
in the batting cleanup,
batter's box, yeah.
For a few months. So I don't exactly remember. Probably I was taking a shower one morning and it just popped into my head and I couldn't stop coming up with funny analogies between wild things that would happen.
It piles on and piles on, and then you have to frame it as like a nightmarish, dreamlike experience where,
yeah. So now the baseball bat regulation length, maybe a little above average baseball bat. Makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's where my brain went. But I was just like not there yet. Now I was like, they didn't fit into my So you come to the game with the proper equipment. It all works. Yep. You're a baseball player. You like baseball. You're willing to participate with these confined, with these parameters.
Well, and
you even accept that, like, in order to get better. Well, go ahead. I just I want to talk about dating framed as a game, and if that is avoidable. I don't think it is kind of to jump to my conclusion, but I might be convinced otherwise. So.
Well, the problem, and this metaphor doesn't even present dating as a game as being a problem. The metaphor presents the change, perhaps in the last decade or more, in dating from the way the game used to be. You walk up to the plate, the lights are shining down brightly so you can see the ball, the pitcher nods to you with respect, and the crowd is paying attention, they're cheering you on. There's a social and cultural push for people to succeed in dating. You have the support of your coach, your parents or whatever say, go get him, Tiger. Everything is fair, the pitches are right down the middle, and if you hit, you hit, and if you don't, you don't, but that's just the way it goes.
Side note, I interpreted that as like pre-internet era, like simpler times, face-to-face. That's how I was going with it. But I think technology is just such an inextricable part of the dating world now. But
right.
Yeah, the rules were the rules, and there just was not saying, like, baseball's a complicated game, even when performed, within the confines of the rules. That's the thing. That's why the metaphor kind of works. Like, baseball is still immensely complex and all the stuff,
Sure.
Enthusiasts say anyway. But at least there was like borders, I guess. I don't know. Like, at least it was sensible.
Right. Yeah, there were expectations, there were roles, and there were certain, to put it into the dating realm, there are certain behaviors that are just kind of expected. When you step up to the plate, there's gonna be a pitch, and when you swing, there's gonna be a reaction of some kind, and whether you succeed or fail, there's some takeaway from that, right? There's some, either you walk back dejectedly, and all of your teammates pat you on the back, and the pitcher gives you a nod of respect, or you hit the ball, and you make it on base.
Yeah.
But then there's a change, right? Something changes, and the metaphor doesn't talk about how gradually it changes. It just presents that was then and this is now. Now you can't even find the plate. There's dirt covering it all up, which is a metaphor for the fact that essentially, quote unquote, in real life dating doesn't exist. It's all dating apps now. It's all online apps, and those are gate kept. You can't be in the dating pool without having an expensive smartphone, which I guess everyone tends to have, but that's odd. We don't think about it, but it's odd that to even be considered in the dating market, you must have one of these hundreds of dollars smartphones. And then not only that, you have to download one of a small number of apps that have enough people to be worthwhile. And those apps themselves aren't developed to provide you success. In fact, quite the opposite. They're provided to keep you failing at just the right rate to keep you on the app, luring you into using your money. That's the Plate Brusher Pro that the umpire lends you. It's all rigged, right? The umpire, the one controlling the game, calling the pitches, is the one controlling your entry into the game and making you pay for it as well.
And that's to think that the umpire of the past was more like fate and your friend groups and people setting people up, meeting at a bar, college. Probably the college thing still is pretty big, I would imagine, where you're just
sure.
like meet someone in class and friend groups and that stuff. I imagine it's fairly significant, but like that was just so there. In that sense, the umpire was there wasn't as much of a gatekeeper. It was sort of just fate and circumstance and all of that. And now, I have a strong distaste for like some company through algorithmic lenses determining your worth, your value on the app.
Yeah.
Like Bennett, in some way, they have some probably. I mean, it'd be eerie to think you have a number associated with you. I mean, I don't know if it'd be a number. It might be a few metrics of how valuable you are to them, right?
Yeah, right. That could be.
Like behind the scenes, you are reduced to that. I mean, I believe you are.
Sure.
And so, like, why else? Like they need to track all that, and they're deciding who gets shown and why and whatnot, and like so they have to like mathematically define you through a few metrics, and so.
Well,
yeah,
that's one of the things that's so kind of dystopian about it is that in the past, even a decade or more ago, we still had online dating, but at the time it was kind of niche. But the options provided then, they were provided by kind of like startup people, small groups of college grads or what. They still had some soul in them. They weren't huge, corporations or anything.
Yeah.
And the sites presented actually were simply collections of tools to meet, organize, and determine compatibility with people. And they actually had a surprising number of features and would be innovative, and they would be updated regularly to add things. And then the bizarre path that we've taken technologically is that gradually the features that all existed back in 2010 or whatever have been taken away one by one and just blobbed down into one universal app that's essentially Tinder. All the apps with different names all essentially are Tinder. Under the hood. You see a series of pictures and you swipe. You don't see any information about the person other than maybe their age, and you just swipe, and only if you are so inclined can you tap on their picture or whatever and see more information about them, which they have to write. And of course there's a limit on the number of characters, a preposterously small limit.
Keeping it smart, right? Yeah, or small. Keeping it really fast. This whole experience should be quick.
Right,
is their idea.
And then you can only swipe so many times in a day before you hit an arbitrary limit. Of course, you can pay to break that limit, or you can pay for artificial beans or hearts or whatever fake currency there is to mysteriously and untransparently give you some kind of arbitrary boost. And all of it is so contrived and restricted with rules, and there's no choice, right? It's not like you put in a search into Google and say, this is what I'm looking for, and it presents you with all of the available options. You're bound by what happens to be out there, what pitches are thrown to you. You don't get to, choose. You're just served up options, and as the metaphor goes into, a lot of those options are fake. They're phantom. They're phantom pitches. They're bots.
Yes.
Or scammers. Or part of the metaphor
that say they're basketball.
right yes, yeah, right. Or and part of the commentary of the metaphor isn't a criticism of the technology exactly. It's more the cultural aspect. Half the baseballs are actually softballs. They're larger than perhaps they should be, or they're damaged fruit that just is leaking ooze, and no one would want to hit them with their baseball bat.
I like to hit them with their baseball bat. It's kind of in the best, in a clean reading of your great metaphor. When it works like it should, you hit the ball with your baseball bat, and all is good with the world. Let me throw this thought at you. Content creators, like the infrastructure of the internet used to be kind of based upon likes and subscribe. Like we think of it as a feature, like, subscribe, follow, whatever, as like a feature of the internet. But I've heard it argued that it's more of the infrastructure, or it used to be the infrastructure. Now we have algorithms connecting. And so content creators used to, I'm getting toward a criticism of the technological aspect, but a content creator used to perform for themselves, their artistic visions, and their fans, essentially their followers. That's who they were beholden to. But as soon as this sort of algorithm stuff took off, consciously or not, they are like being rewarded to perform for the algorithm and what gets the most engagement, right? And so that really changed the infrastructure of everything. And so now they're beholden to the algorithm and not their fans or their artistic vision. And that can play out subtly, but also like significantly. You can imagine scenarios. And so now I'm going back to this idea of, like, in dating, you are beholden to your values and the values of the person you want to be with. That's clearly what a relationship is. And with an algorithm in the mix, it kind of flattens idiosyncrasies and expressions, both in content creators and in dating. I would think that, like, you're going to get the most rewarded for being, like, the most agreeable. It's kind of like, same with films, right? They got to be all like Marvel. I mean, thank God collectively we're exhausted of that sort of thing, and we're hopefully going into an era of more artistic expression and creativity and weird. I like seeing weird films come out that are one-offs and they're not. We've talked about this endlessly, but I think about that. Like, I think there's a parallel with dating, that you either perform a little for the algorithm, concede a little, or you don't and pay a price.
Yeah, no, I think that observation is true, especially for women on the dating apps. For men, I think that the incentives are just different, and that's another way. I don't know if I explicitly tied this together in the metaphor, but the dating landscape is drastically different for men and for women. For women, the incentives that you talk about, that getting the likes or whatever, is definitely more of a component, because the scales are so tilted that women will often on the dating apps get just totally overwhelmed with likes or swipes or messages or whatever, hundreds a week.
Yeah.
So many that they can't even be responded to, and you can imagine that would be very alluring for certain women, right? Women maybe with low self-esteem, or maybe just perfectly well-adjusted women that get addicted to the good feeling of having people express interest in you. Even if you have no intention of responding in kind.
I'm a people pleaser. That could be dangerously intoxicating if I opened up something to say I had hundreds of saying you're cute, you're handsome, man. Right. I'd be like, yeah. I mean, I would love it. So
exactly, and you can imagine how that could kind of taint the way that you live in the world, your own self-image, the way you interact with technology, and so on. Now for men, it's a little different because of the tilted scales. That's not exactly the way it plays out. It's not like men are getting hundreds of matches a week. That's not how it works. So that posturing for likes or swipes, it's still there. Obviously, men are trying to min-max everything they can to,
I've not heard that term, min-max.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's used in gaming a lot, but I think it's also kind of a scientific thing. You're trying to find the minimums and maximums and perfectly tune them. What did you think it was?
MEN max.
Oh.
Like, max
like-
out your man. I thought it was a new cultural term.
Oh, no.
Like, I got a men max, shirtless, just in the
Oh, yeah.
right way. Or
That's
whatever.
funny. Maybe that's what I'll start saying now.
Yeah. Wait.
Min-maxing.
So tell me that minimum, maximum. Tell me what that means again.
You're just trying to appropriately tune the minimums and maximums of your behavior so that you're
Sure.
optimized, essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Min max.
Min max.
Really cracks me up.
That is
It's
funny.
the title for the episode.
Min
Maybe. I don't
maxing.
know. Yeah.
One
Well, that's
thing-
what women are doing, or is that what men are doing? I'm not sure, but like, yeah.
Women don't. No, women are not min maxing.
They don't
women-
need to.
They don't
They're
have
getting...
to. They simply have to exist in the space, and they'll get inundated. But because and this is why it's a downward spiral because men, because it's such a wasteland out there, will jump at any opportunity. And that was what the metaphor was talking about. You get thrown a softball and it's finally a real pitch. It's not a phantom, and you're so tempted to swing, but in your soul that it wouldn't be satisfying to even if you did hit it. But a lot of men are very tempted. That's the temptation for men, is to just swing at anything, and that means that they're sending a message to everyone or swiping right on everyone, which then overwhelms the women, which then makes them jaded, cynical, and maybe self-absorbed, which makes them not accept as many, which makes it more of a wasteland, and on it goes until almost no people are happy with the current state of dating, women or men, and both groups of people are experiencing cultural problems because of it.
I almost want to back up. I don't want to go too far down this because we're just going to talk in generalities and potential stereotypes. But is it really simply like men are visual creatures? We're designed to spread our seed, and in terms of the pie chart of what we value, are just so holistically, men are really just like, I want the physically attractive woman, and so we are. And then since they get to carefully curate their profile, they get to represent themselves at their best. So we're just like, yes. And so we just get on like animals. It like pulls out our animal. I'm just trying to unpack, why is this so wildly disproportionate, particularly through technology? It's been disproportionate like through humanity, yes. But like, I think it gets exacerbated. The problem gets turned up to 11, And so I'm just, why is my question. Why did it get so out of control? Yeah.
Well, to talk about the visual appeal aspect, part of it is the changing in technology, and all of the apps have kind of coalesced into simply presenting a picture with no information. I don't think that all men are purely beholden to physical appearance. I do agree that it's important, probably more important for men than for women. And men are visual creatures, as you say. But you could imagine if the technology wouldn't have taken this path, and instead you're presented, a profile where, the picture is present, it's obviously important, but there's more information presented too. Or perhaps you're not just simply served up a platter of pictures. Instead, you're putting in the traits that you're interested in.
Yeah, imagine that. You don't see pictures at first, and then
No.
you swipe right on the characteristics, and then you get one photo or something different like that. Wow,
right.
like really de-emphasizing that. It might change the game,
Right. Well, imagine if you, instead of, when you open an app or a website or whatever it was, you're not presented someone's face that they've doctored and,
With
taken
cleavage and all the things, right?
right,
that they're
all the
encouraged to do.
things,
So,
right,
yep.
exactly, all the things that this system has, incentivized. But instead, you're asked, all right, what are you looking for? And you can put in, maybe an age, maybe a location, maybe particular values or what kind of relationship you're looking for. You put in all of that important stuff, and then it serves you the people who match your criteria, and that would be a technological design that's focused on success, right? On making the users achieve success. But that's not the
Right.
incentive for the apps. If the apps did that, then people would very quickly be matched up with compatible people and get off the app and be happy. They would actually have enjoyable lives, and our society would be, well functioning, and people would start families, and the world would be a magical, beautiful place forever, a utopia. But the apps instead, are barriers in the way of that. And in fact,
I actually think that they're short-sighted. I think
Yeah.
they're short-sighted because if they were to do that and people were happy, then it would be almost normal to go in and pay. Like, you hear about how great this app is. People match all the time and get off, but they paid $20 or what. Like, people would just gladly go throw $20 for a couple of months or a year or whatever it is and get their match. I think, and that would be like the cultural norm, and they'd probably make a bunch more money than and they'd have new people getting on all the time because obviously populations are, people entering in the dating market and all of that. Like, come on, it's short-sighted is my point. It's like they're just like, oh, I want to keep this user on instead of understanding like they're not worried about your satisfaction. They're just worried about they want to cultivate addiction more than satisfaction, because addiction, I guess, is by their estimation stronger at keeping people on. But like happy customers that were like that experience was good, you would think could just. Because dating is just like gonna be this giant swath of people at all times.
I mean, but you have too much of a heart. You're thinking about it too
No, I'm
reasonably.
saying purely business terms. In business terms, it seems to me that it would play out. That
I don't think so.
More people.
Like, think about.
You don't think so?
Think about. I mean, I wish that were true. And if
I would think very few are paying. But what if the culture was we all paid happily because we like.
You've been married or in a relationship for a number of years now, so maybe you haven't seen how far things have have degraded. But
that's definitely true.
But all of the apps now have moved. You can buy a few beans. I don't buy anything.
Like microtransactions, right? You're saying the microtransactions are taking over. So $1
no,
here or there.
No. Not now. It's moved even further than microtransactions. I mean, they're still present if that's the way you choose to funnel them your money. You can still buy the beans or hearts or whatever's.
Are beans really one of them? What is a bean?
Yeah, they're beans.
Token,
it's one of
whatever.
the app's currencies.
Weird.
I know, it's stupid. But now they've all moved to just monthly subscription models, and the prices are astounding. I mean, we're talking between $20 and $50 a month.
Wow.
To participate in this premium category and get your extra boosts and your extra,
The word boost sounds nebulous too. Like,
well, it is nebulous.
Just say
That's the
things
thing.
like you'll be shown like to more people and more likely to match. It'll just say something like that.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So, I could never justify paying for these special services if it said, if you give me $50. We will go out there and find a woman that meets all your criteria, give you her number, and guarantee one conversation. That's maybe there's potential value.
A 30-minute phone call where they reached out to you and then they like networked and they did this thing that was a little more like something substantive for Bennett. Like,
right. That's not so obscure, and there's some transparency there in the
tilt
process.
The algorithm in your favor. That's all they're saying they're doing with premium.
Right,
which is the algorithm in your favor.
How much do you believe that? I don't believe it. I think it's bullshit. Like, I think that these soulless, they're just happy to prey on people. And so when you think about the potential profit motive or the potential profits that they could make, in the best of worlds where they actually had hearts and were trying to get people to succeed, they would provide a product that accomplishes the job. They would provide the tools necessary, and then they would say, did you have success? Then please tip us, or please pay us, or reward us for providing you this wonderful service.
I love the idea people would do that. Like, I'd pay if I met Danielle through Hinge. If Hinge had been like reached out and said, we saw you got married. I don't know, whatever.
Right.
I mean, like, I don't know. There's a world in which I'd go, here's $100 because damn, like I met my life partner. Like, great.
Exactly. Like if they were providing a service that good, I would be happy to reward that amazing product. But instead, they don't do that, and they must suspect that a lot of people also wouldn't do that. They would get what they want out of it and then drop it and not reward. I think that's overly cynical, but not without merit. And so instead, they wager that the addiction that you mentioned is the stronger motivation, and so they shade everything and make it impossible to figure out what your odds are. Half of people are bots and fake profiles to keep you thinking that there's a chance. And then they lure you. They limit the number of swipes you get, but allow you to pay for more. And I just have to imagine that there are thousands of men out there. I mean, just it's pathetic that, and they must just be, paying hundreds of dollars a year to these services, hoping for a pitch, that's not a phantom or not a tomato or whatever. And like it's depressing how different it is. And one other thing that I wanted to comment on is this technological shift has, and one of the things I tried to roll into the metaphor is that, while it used to be that your teammates in the dugout were paying attention, rooting you on, the audience, they got quiet when the pitch was about to be thrown, and then they cheer when you swing, whether you hit or you miss. Anyway, there was social engagement, whereas now it's a very isolated thing. It's on a little box in your hand. Your entire dating life is on a little box in your hand, and it's not social whatsoever. It's like playing, Clash of Titans or whatever game you play on your phone.
Clash Royale.
Or, whatever. Fiddling around with.
Yeah, I don't tell anyone about
apps.
Clash Royale. I play it every day, but I don't really tell anyone about it, right? It's just me.
Well, people don't talk about their Tinder profile or what's going on, how their swipes are going.
Yeah.
They don't
I would
mention
actually
it.
say, it's funny you say that, because I would say that they don't mention things until they start to get serious, and then it's like, well, I think it just used to be more open, and I've gone out with this girl a few times, or I'm going, or even, hey, I'm going to go on this date. You would talk about that a little more openly. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know, to each their own, but now it's like it's more private, and almost like culturally we've just like, hey, you can't be nosy, you can't ask about it either, and so that allows the culture of ghosting to kind of take off and things like that. There's no responsibility. There's no That's
the other thing too, is that in the past you might be talking to one person, and that one person took up a lot of your attention, or even if you had 2 or 3 people you were talking to, they were real connections that had some meat to them. But now, you with the apps, you just have a queue, especially for women. You probably have a dozen matches at any given time. And for men, there have been times when I've had 5 or 6, and that's far too overwhelming to have at one time. I mean, more often you have 0, and you stay at 0 for weeks or months. But then sometimes it all just combines. But either way, what my point is just that the possible intimacy of these connections is so much lower. Your attention is fragmented, to go back to a topic that we like to revert to.
That's
and
exactly
so,
the language I was thinking of. Yeah,
right. And so it's genuinely less important. It matters less to both the people participating, and then consequently to the larger society paying attention to the culture of dating. It's not like I ever say, oh yeah, I got 3 matches right now, and the conversations are, I'm asking them, I'm doing the small talk, I'm asking them about their hobbies. Like, that's lame, that's boring, it's not worth talking about. I don't have the belief that any of those conversations are actually going to succeed, and so it's not worth talking about.
That's what I was going to ask you. I recall like something like this realization was troubling to me. Let's say I was in conversation with a couple of people. I remember just thinking small talk really, like, there's a world in which if I'm interested in someone and they start telling me that they have a brother and a sister and where they're raised, but like if that's the conversation you're having with 3 or 4 people at any given moment, or the fact they are abstract, they're still this person in your phone, they're not fully real yet. I mean, they're real, I guess. You actually don't. That's part of the problem. But it was so difficult for me to care if they had a sister or something, and I felt bad about that. But the reason is because, like, I don't even know who you are. I'm not even 100% if you're real. How? And now you're telling me you have a sister. Like, it's like lore on top of lore in a world that I don't even know is real or significant or important or related to me. And then, like, so remembering your sister's name, much less your, like, where they went to college or something. Like I just didn't care, and I felt like a jerk because like I'm a caring person, and if this person is a potential partner, then you want to care about those things. And I had so much trouble caring about the things in their life. And I'm just going to ask you if you've experienced something like that, or is my response like normal? Is there a reason I was having that sort of like how many? Because I've been told like through my dating experience like how many conversations that I had where I'd learned about their siblings, and at some point just that was just something that didn't stick. It didn't matter because until I've been on a couple dates, then I might go, wait a second, how many siblings do you have? Now that I'm starting to know you. Now I do actually want to know those things. So.
It depends on how the interaction is cultivated. And it's extremely, the incentives are all aligned to make the interaction as unintimate as possible, right? They're all texting based connections.
Yeah. I grew weary of texting. Like I think I'm kind of like texting
texting.
so low on my means of communication. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's basically now for me. It's like, hey, I'm at the airport, pick me up, like that kind of stuff. Like that's where it's at. Or pictures of Cosmo to my parents. Like there you go.
Well, the apps they've gone through some ups and downs in terms of what options they provide for you to interact with others, and it began with text. It began, before they were apps as message. They're essentially email services, right? And the little box that you type your text into actually takes up a lot of your screen as an email, and so the natural inclination would be to write a paragraph or a letter, essentially, and then it moved to kind of an instant messenger kind of thing, and then the boxes get smaller and smaller and smaller, and now, of course, on the apps, they make them feel like texting.
Yeah,
and there were times in the history where they allowed video calling, but that has all gone away. I guess because maybe there was abuse, or it's too expensive to run the service, or people were getting naked, or I don't know what the deal the deal was, but that's gone now. There's none of that. Some apps allow you to send voice messages, and some don't. Most it's just text, and that's it. And so the point of that is just that the amount of intimacy you can build in a tiny little box that pushes you to only write one sentence or maybe two at a time is just low. And texting, by its very nature, fragments your attention because it's not real time. So you turn your attention to the conversation for the span of 2 minutes or whatever, write your text, and then you put your phone down and you turn your attention to something else. You get out of the mind space of the conversation and thinking about the person, and then they text you back and you look at it. Now you're back in for a minute and you respond, and then you're back out again. And that's just if you're talking to one person. But imagine that you're a moderately attractive woman on the app. You're going to have dozens of those happening
bouncing in
all
and
the time.
out. Yeah,
right. You're gonna
how are they going to care about my brother? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
you're gonna get confused who you're actually responding to. Like imagine you're gonna have to scroll up in those conversations. That's if you care. You're gonna have to scroll up in the conversations to remind yourself of the details of the person that you're even interacting with. And so it encourages a shallowness in the conversation because most people aren't going to scroll up and try to remember. And it would require a particularly disciplined woman who knows what she wants to only accept one or two matches at a time and then play those to the end. And I just have to say, in my experience, that's very uncommon for someone to do that.
Yeah. I thought of something that complicates things, and it's like two facets. Like one is I was watching an AI video the other day, or not an AI video, but a video on AI and some different tools. And when the guy was walking through all these tools, and he noted that like the way he and his girlfriend communicate is primarily through those voice memos. That you made me think of that when you talked about that was an ability in these things, and it made me think. And he was younger, and I thought, okay, wait, what if that's a medium that is used more commonly that I don't like participate in? That's weird. And if I fold that in the idea that this is a big topic, but I'm just going to throw the bullet points at you that what younger people are attracted to has morphed so much that I don't like they will show me like this guy is attractive. Like females will generally consider this male attractive, and I'll look at the male and I'm not just being like I'm willing to go, yeah, he's sexy or whatever. I don't have no issue with that. And like, but I'm like, what? like what they view as attractive is so bizarre. And by the way, has hints of like, kids are like, what is attractive? Like, have you ever heard of a smash cake? I just gotta take this really fast. So they make a cake and they put all the people that they're attracted to, people they want to smash, right?
You've told me about this before.
I made a mistake as a teacher, and I was like, I want to be on a smash cake. I didn't know what it was. Because I thought they were just putting like things
like
that people they admired. Yeah, smash. I didn't. I was picturing a flattened cake, but not a I want to smash that.
Yeah.
And then,
funny.
but they also have a hear me out cake, and the hear me out cake is like where you put like animated characters or things that are not traditionally attractive,
right.
but it's like really taken off. And the point is that like it is crushes on animated characters or untraditionally attractive is becoming more and more normed, and so that's folded into the like what makes someone attractive. It's morphed so much, Bennett, that like, and I know we're talking about a younger generation, so that's and maybe but like it's not just like, I mean, I've always thought like there's parameters for beauty and handsomeness that are like someone might like there's boundaries that, and you can go on the outer skirts of those boundaries, but we can agree that like symmetry, for instance, those sorts of things, but like they're pushing those boundaries like
I know, yeah,
to the point that makes me uncomfortable. So I fold in both what I feel like is an attuned sense of what handsome and beauty is, and just like what I consider intimacy is in terms of communication, what mediums are appropriate and not appropriate. And if I'm all out of alignment, and if I were in the dating world and potentially a little bit out, just a little off on that alignment, that it creates these chasms that are even difficult to bridge. Like what the hell?
You're totally right. I mean, there's the technological influence, but then the cultural. It's hard to tell what's causative and what's cause and what's effect.
Yes.
Now I am a man, and so I only see women's profiles, and so all of my cultural criticisms are centered around how the women present themselves on the profiles, and I have a lot of commentary on that. But I believe that the reverse is just as true. Like you say, if you see what your students find attractive nowadays, it probably shocks you. And I have trouble determining whether all the profiles that I see is it what is considered attractive, or is it an indication of cultural decline? Because like, and one of the things that I've noticed is that there's this bizarre, I don't understand it. There's a bizarre move towards, like, I don't know how to put it aside from like self-destruction. Like, and I don't know whether it's encouraged by the apps, or the apps, there's just no feedback that tells you, hey, maybe you shouldn't like have a piercing in your left nostril and your right nostril and run a chain outside of your nose between those. Like, there's no feedback to tell you, hey, maybe that, maybe you shouldn't do that. That doesn't look normal or healthy or good in any way. And like the face tattoos, there's a sort of bragging to therapy that's prevalent on the apps. Like some of the apps even provide a framework that allow you to brag about certain things that are important to you. Little causes, the badges that you can put on your profile if you care about. Well, usually they're modern social justice causes, right? There's there's no badge for like, I want to start a family, or I love my dad.
My dad's my hero. That's
right. There's no badge for that. It's all exactly what you would expect. Like quote unquote reproductive rights, or quote unquote indigenous rights, or quote unquote like whatever. And therapy is one of them. And I don't like, that's not
that one's really unusual. Yeah.
Right. I can understand the tech apps and stuff having a political bias and injecting their political badges onto everything. And I think it's stupid. But therapy, at least to my knowledge, is not a political topic. It
shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, and I don't think it is. I'm not aware of any politically polarizing discussion on therapy exactly, but nonetheless, it's become a very prominent badge. I see that on many profiles, and I don't understand. My interpretation of it is that It's saying I'm damaged or unwell, or yeah, I have an issue that requires this sort of emotional
Like
soothing, and
professional help.
I
Yeah.
require professional help, and I'm bragging about it. I'm putting my vulnerability, my blemishes, I'm putting all of that on display for you, which to me is very strange, because at the same time they're putting filters on their pictures, and they're glamming up and presenting the perfect
Yeah, yeah.
angles and the perfect lighting, and they're providing a fake representation of their physical appearance, and an overly revealing, and even probably they're probably not as damaged as they're even portraying, and I don't understand
Right.
that cultural trend
I
of
mean,
presenting that.
I have some ideas about, well, deconstructing taboos is political, right? You can, I mean, it's clear there's a political movement to deconstruct everything we have, and that includes boundaries and anything that's taboo. And so, like, I think there's something healthy about saying we need to have mental health discussions that used to be taboo. Let's lean into these discussions. But I
Sure.
think the pendulum is a bit odd right now. This sort of, it's not a prideful thing. It's also, I want to go back to early. This connects to an idea I had that I didn't get to say earlier. Is that, like, dating is a game, right? And one of the ways I used to criticize it is, like, I used to say I hate small talk. Like, I don't want to talk about the weather. I want to get real with people. I want to have intimate, like vulnerable conversations.
Yeah.
But if we're being mature about it, I actually think intimacy is only meaningful because you selectively reveal it to people you trust, and
Yeah.
it is like that's what it. So when I get to know you, I will tell you my hopes and fears, and you're in my, like, there's trust that's built because I've revealed this vulnerability. And so I think in the digital age, are like the ideas like you just articulated really well. Like, intimacy is screwed up. People don't know how to know themselves or get to know others, and I think it's
Right.
actually correlated with all this piercing stuff. Is
I
that,
think
like,
so too. Yeah.
like we're bored, we're not out there, like, engaging in productive struggle and meaning making and real identity meaning making, and so we just, like, are, like, putting holes in our face and tattooing and, like,
Yeah, right.
trying to appear provocative and interesting and doing interesting things. And so, like, does this look interesting? And then we do get kind of sick if we don't engage in productive struggle or learning. I think we start to slip, and we actually might need some help. But then we're in this weird, like, let's talk about it as part of my identity. Like, no, 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 no. Therapy is not part of your identity. This is a struggle you had, and, like, and it's something you should reveal to those around you. It is good, to me, to deconstruct those taboos about mental health. We should lean into those discussions, but, like, therapy should not be your knee-jerk reaction to like, oh, I'm struggling, I should get therapy. Like, no, no, no. Like, if you're clinically in a position where you're stuck, yes. But if you can talk to friends, go try eating better, working out for a number, like, you try to disrupt it yourself, and then with your community, and then when those things are not able to do so, then therapy and potentially medications and whatnot. But, like, this idea of championing it and putting it as a badge,
Yeah.
it's just to me, like, a sad display of intimacy, like our attempts at being intimate. Like, it's sad to me. I actually don't see it and feel disgusted as much as I feel like,
Me too. Yeah, me too. I mean,
like,
that's how my reaction to the dating pool has changed over the years. It used to be at the very beginning, oh, excitement, right? There's all of these options, and you can very quickly potentially match and get into contact. That was back before the technology started degrading,
yeah.
and then it just turned into indifference, and then I did have a period of disgust where I just and that still crops up every now and then, where I just think we're
you
screwed.
can't help disgust.
Well,
That might
I
even
mean,
just be
when
like,
you
yeah.
when you see just the numbers, it's mind-boggling. Like, the proportions, like the number of seemingly well-adjusted young women who have their life together and aren't destroying themselves and say something nice about themselves is mind-boggling. How rare that is. And so obviously that's going to engender some amount of disgust, not directed at one particular person. I don't look at that and go, wow, I wish this person would. I don't have ill feelings towards individual people,
But systemically,
but
we're
systemically,
doing
yes.
something.
Societally, I think this is bad. This is really bad. If these are the women between, the age of 20 and 30 or whatever, they're going to be raising, well, a lot of them won't be raising families because of the problems we're talking about, but some of them will be raising families and, bringing in the next generation. And if this is the trend, if this is the track we're on, this is dark. This is very, very dark because there's so few well-adjusted people. One point that I wanted to make as well, like you said, that it's almost like people don't know how to express their vulnerabilities or their struggles or whatever appropriately. And I think, again, some of this goes back to the technology. Like, the technology only allows you 5 pictures and 500 characters or something to present your entire being out there. And so you're not going to have enough room to write about your struggles or your how you interact with the world, or you can't be detailed enough to present yourself verbally in a way that might attract people. And so you're left with railing against these restrictions and doing it in images. And like, I have to imagine for someone who might be a little more neurotic or a little bit more prone to self-consciousness or whatever, that you would, and you're getting no feedback. Women, of course, are just getting right swipes no matter what. So they have no ability for people to say, you're doing it wrong right now. And so they can just go all out. They can pierce whatever they want or tattoo whatever they want or chop their hair in whatever way they want, or they can put on their profile that they're quote unquote ethically non-monogamous, or they can say anything.
Wait, what does that even ethically non-monogamous?
Are you not aware?
Date whoever.
You're not aware of that phrase? Oh.
Are they saying that they date anyone, or are they saying that they themselves are? Well, yeah, I think that's what it means, right? They date anyone.
It's polyamory, ethical non-monogamy. It just means that you essentially have an arrangement with at least one person that you can be with, whoever you want. Essentially, you both agree that you can sleep around. Essentially, I was actually considering.
Wait, say the phrase one more time.
It's called ethical non-monogamy. So basically informed.
Oh, I thought you were saying ethnically non-monogamous. Okay, so no. Okay, so
has
ethically,
nothing to do with
ethically,
nothing to do with ethnicity. It's
okay,
So essentially, it's informed cheating. You're telling your partner, oh yeah,
it's polyamory. It's just a different. Just a cool term, I guess.
Yeah,
and
right.
And if you put the word ethical in front of it, that makes it ethical.
Of course, that makes it ethical. Yeah, it makes it okay. Of course, consent is our.
Yeah, consenting adults is our barrier for what is ethical and what is not.
That's our. You can do anything as long as there's consent for it. Even when obviously we're discussing all of this cultural degradation and mental damage, and like, can people who exist in such an environment, in such a state, really provide consent?
Consent is a really difficult subject in its own right. What just because you said you consent, do you understand? And if you're just dumb, and you don't understand the ramifications, then are you really consenting, or are you just because you don't understand the consequences? And I think in order to consent to something, you have to know what it means, and knowing what it means understanding the consequences. So right. Yeah, it gets complicated. Right. I don't know. I mean, I get legally you have to just be like, well, if you're 18 and you weren't drunk, if you're sober and say it, go do that experiment. But the experiment just seems to be in one direction. I would like to see experiments in reclaiming intimacy and being thoughtful about. One thing about intimacy is, I fall on the end of being more revealing earlier than I should, but I still think I fall within a normal bounds. And that's a way that I socialize with people. I kind of test the limits and see where they're at. And then if I read that they didn't appreciate that, then I pull back. But I certainly on a website don't aim to communicate my edginess through, a piercing or a tattoo. That gets frustrating to me. I'd rather be edgy in more interesting intellectual ways that are make you think. And I understand the dating game better now. I don't think someone should be hi, I'm Daniel, and I have therapy and problems. I should probably lead with, my sense of humor and tastes and things, and then
Right,
if
right.
it's going well, at some point, it's like you want to talk about what's ethical. Like I should let you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And there is an art of how long, and like, look, there's a gray area for sure, but like it's weird to wear it like a badge, literally a badge. It
Literally.
sounds like
Yes.
now, like
Right.
they have these digital badges, and that's bizarre. Like it's not right. Like we should not like again, I think what you reveal and when you reveal is part of what, like, when you reveal it makes part of the relationship. Instead of just saying, this is who I am, here's all the good and the bad and the ugly, and then like going into the storm of the internet and finding other people that are, this is not how intimacy, like, it's like pre-approved intimacy come into our community, and that's bullshit. That's not real intimacy. Just because you joined a gang of people who are really proud of their mental illness doesn't make you all like close. Like it just doesn't.
I mean, yeah, I think you make a good point there. Intimacy it's a two-way street, right? Like there's presenting your vulnerability, which historically has been an intimate act. Like you say, you don't reveal these, things about yourself unless you're building some kind of bond. But whether it's culture or technology, we've morphed into this thing where people just barf everything about themselves out onto these profiles, and maybe that gives them a faux sense of intimacy. Like maybe people have confused.
I think it does.
People have confused the feeling of exposing their vulnerabilities with intimacy. Maybe they don't even know what intimacy even is anymore, and they think that that's what being intimacy is. But of course, on these apps, you're getting no feedback. There's no two-way street. It's one way. You're barfing it all out there, and you feel maybe some sense of catharsis that you've revealed this about yourself. And maybe that's why for women, because they barf it out there. They have the nose chain, they have the therapy badge, they have whatever on their profile, and nonetheless they get hundreds of matches a week, and so maybe that tells them that it's okay to behave this way. But I have to wonder what the outcome of that is.
Well, this is definitely happening. Like I was just reading some articles about mental health in students and in digital spaces, and so like people self-harm, they join communities of self-harm, and guess what?
Yeah.
You get rewarded for the deeper the wound, and like people celebrate it, and that's your sort of
Right.
hierarchy, is how much do you wound and how deep and how serious is it. And now you're in this very bizarre community that's like that, by the way, weird. If we're going to be really intellectually honest, we have to admit that like lonely people finding a community, like there are slivers of positivity, and that's where it gets really messy, because they're actually finding some sense of belonging, and these really powerful forces that we have to say, we have to go, okay, if to tease out the nuances, to say, I'm glad you found some people in your life. Can we find people, and maybe even those people, I don't know, but like the way that community is operating is promoting unhealthy habits, so that's when therapy can disrupt something like you finding your meaning and cutting your wrists or posting these things online, like so
It's an interesting dilemma, right? Like we've talked about in a context other than dating, about the niche interest groups that can form on the internet, but in potentially dangerous or disturbing or damaging things, right?
Yes.
Like you could
Yes.
form in a
conspiracy stuff, whatever.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
In a pre-internet society, you might have one deviant who who's sadistic or loves to inflict pain or torture animals or whatever, but he's not going to be able to find like minds because that's so rare. And so the odds are the social pressure and the isolation of that idea is just going to make it wither. But with the internet, you can find a community of animal torturers or whatever disgusting thing you could possibly imagine. You can find a community for that online and then indulge in that further. You can progress further down that path, and it gets darker and darker. Now, putting aside the extreme and dark things and just talking about loneliness, like you mentioned, that to me seems damaging too, because you say it gets messy, and maybe you find just enough social interaction to satisfy your loneliness, but not enough to get you out of this little rut. Like it's still not real.
Oh yeah.
And so if it never makes the transition to genuine friendships, that push further than responding on a message board, is it solving the problem? No, it's just like it's just alleviating the pain just enough to barely keep you alive, but still lonely, you know?
Right. The
So,
inappropriate amount of just enough nourishment or whatever. Yeah. but
right,
you're not gonna be
exactly. Like
healthy. You're still malnourished.
what kind of life is that to live? And so there's got to be, and I don't feel like we as a society, we still haven't learned how to use technology and the internet appropriately. We don't have the discipline. The incentives are not aligned in such a way that allow us to, interact with these tools in a healthy manner. And that's why, so many people are ditching social media, and so many people have, dropped the dating apps and so on, even if it means that, they're resigning themselves to being single. People do that. I mean, I've felt that pull myself. The apps are so horrible, and I've largely moved through the disgust phase and into the sadness phase. Like, it just bums me out when I get on there and I see, like, wow, this is how things are.
This is humanity.
Oh,
if it
this
is, I'd like to think it's the digital representation, and that's yeah.
Well, what distresses me is that I do believe that the apps put bots and fake profiles and stuff, and so they'll of course put beautiful women. And if that is a population, but the population of depressing profiles is still prevalent, so much greater than even those fake ones, then what is even going on? Like, where are the genuinely well-adjusted, relatively normal people? It's distressing how rare it is.
You said something that struck clarity with me, is like traditionally bad ideas, bizarre ideas, unhealthy ideas are isolated and they die. And then the internet did something different and said, no, these bad ideas don't have to go be alone. They don't have to die. And that's,
Yeah, right.
I mean, we've said that in different ways 1,000 times, but that was such a clear way of putting it, is bad ideas can find each other and grow. And that's scary. And like, it's really challenged. And I'm reading that book Nexus. That's like more. I've always believed in the free marketplace of ideas and the idea of sharpening. Let the good ideas triumph, and you sharpen your ideas by being challenged, and good ideas rise to the top. And generally, that's true in a population of well-adjusted people who like shun bad ideas. But when you have a mixed population of unhealthy people, healthy people, whatever, more information grows. And in a misinformation era, like, man, I don't think good ideas always win out. And I hate saying that I'm not so sure anymore that I think good ideas just generally win out. I think they still do generally, but man.
Think about another sports analogy. Let's do the Roman Colosseum or something, right?
Just watched Gladiator 2, so it's fresh on my mind. Yeah.
That's sports. Well, the marketplace of ideas, the battling of the good ideas versus the bad ideas, and the good ideas win. I think that's a fundamentally sound principle. The problem is that the Colosseum has gotten so large that it's essentially boundless, and so the good ideas and bad ideas don't necessarily have to come into contact with each other. They can both thrive.
Yeah.
And the good ideas are going to be more successful because they do encounter some other things and defeat them and win. But the bad ideas are not going to get a sword stabbed through their throat, or whatever.
Well, get this. Good ideas, you're saying that they end up rising because when applied in the real world, like it like works. That's what a good idea is. It works in the real world. Yeah. Well, digital spaces, I don't know what's real anymore. So a bad idea... Oh, this is a scary thought.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I don't know what reality is as it's being reconstructed into digital spaces.
When we have platforms like TikTok or YouTube or OnlyFans or whatever, where you can carve out a digital life and get paid for it, then maybe bad ideas can win out sometimes. Like, it's just a matter of how many eyeballs, how much attention. How much of the fragmented, can you split off a fragment of humanity's attention and put it on yourself long enough to capitalize on it, even if it's a bad idea? Maybe you can.
Yeah. I mean, OnlyFans is the like safe, right. Like, yeah. Ugh. So yeah, to me, that's a good example of a bad idea that is like not being undercut because it's not meeting real world resistance until like later. Like they're going to pay some... I hypothesis that they pay that cost later on.
Yeah, the time scale of the consequences is just all messed up. Like maybe that's the difference, is that in real life you get the immediate feedback pretty quick that you're making bad decisions. You can see the scorn on your townspeople's faces, or whatever. Like, you get the disapproving looks or the disparaging comments or whatever. And yeah, maybe that hurts, and maybe some of it is rude and inappropriate, but at least it tells you you're not going with the crowd here. Yeah. Whereas in the digital spaces, you're not getting that feedback until 10 or 15 years later, when you no longer have the commodities to the attention. You can't draw the same eyeballs that you once could, and now you've missed all your chances at a genuinely satisfying life. And so maybe that period of feedback, that feedback loop frequency, is now so slow that it's going to take us 50 or 60 more years before we learn what's a good idea.
Slow and warped, because you are getting feedback like in the opposite direction, right? This is good. You're getting paid a lot, whatever. You're not in harm's way. Harm being like the physical risks of prostitution or something,
True.
Well,
baseball. I love some baseball.
Yeah, that was a uplifting podcast.
Yeah, I guess
doomed.
I guess there's no hopeful bow to tie at the end, unfortunately. Except maybe if more people were aware of, or actually put their mind to thinking about how depressing and distressing the state of the technology and the culture is, maybe more people would say, no, I'm not going to participate in that. Yeah. And we could go back to more of a real life interaction between human beings who actually take care of themselves and have some respect for each other and the process of dating. Now, that, again, I think that would be a slow process that'll take decades.
Yes.
Our generation will miss out on that, but maybe Cosmo's generation will be able to live in a world where it's not so screwed up.
That's
by
exactly
technology.
It. The bow I'm putting on it is that we are amidst reclaiming the whole relationship with our phones and these phone-free school movements. I really hope in 2 years that it didn't just fizzle, that it's like fundamentally different, that we'll see like, wow, schools generally have created phone-free spaces. Right. And out of that,
maybe, you're right. Maybe that'll grow. If the schools become phone-free spaces, maybe the home becomes a phone-free space, and maybe phones
for dinner or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe gradually technology will change, and we may not have physical boxes that we hold in our hands or whatever, and that has its own scary implications. But perhaps we mature enough culturally to learn how to use the tools appropriately, and we get to a place where we're back to human interaction. That's the optimistic. Yeah. That's the optimistic eye towards it, and so hopefully Cosmo will have that. That experience, and you can tell him about the dark times of Tinder. You can let him listen to this episode, his legacy.
The
Third Space Podcast is Cosmo's legacy.
That idea is called techno-selectionism in response to digital optimism, right? Like we've all this reflexive yes we've had toward digital optimism. Like everyone's like, yeah, it's going to change the world, it's going to connect us more, yeah, and now we all know, wait, this is terrible. So but we don't want to get rid of some of the awesome aspects of technology. Don't be anti-tech. That's a misreading of the scenario. Yeah, that's not the idea. It's techno-selectionism, and I really find that to be a common sense and powerful term.
Agreed.
So there's the positive bow. Techno-selectionism. Yay.
Techno-selectionism.
Bye.
Bye.